When the relationship ends, it feels like more than love is gone. It feels like you are gone. The version of you that laughed with them. The version of you that shared inside jokes. The version of you that belonged to a we. Now you're left with just you. And it feels unfamiliar. Almost empty. You ask yourself, who am I without them? Do I even recognize myself anymore? What's left of me now that they've walked away? This is the part no one tells you about. It's not just losing them. It's losing the version of yourself that only existed with them. And the question becomes, how do you rebuild an identity that feels whole after it's been shattered by loss? The shattered self. When a relationship ends, it isn't just about heartbreak. It's about identity. It's about losing the mirror that reflected you back to yourself. Because relationships don't just give love. They give you a role. They give you meaning. They give you a sense of belonging. You weren't just you. You were a partner, a lover, a companion. And when that ends, the ground shakes. The labels fall away. And suddenly, the person you thought you were feels incomplete. That's why it hurts so deeply. Not just because you lost them, but because you lost a version of yourself that only existed in their presence. Think about it. How often did you make decisions with them in mind? What to eat? Where to go? What plans to make? How often did your days revolve around their presence? Their texts, their routines, their approval? Without realizing it, you began to weave your identity around the relationship. Your I became we. Your mind became ours. So when the we breaks, you're left holding pieces, and you don't always know how to put them back together. It feels like standing in front of a shattered mirror. The reflection is broken. You see fragments of yourself, but not the whole picture. One shard shows who you were before them. Another shows who you were with them. And another is blank. A reminder of who you don't know how to be yet. And here's the thing. That blank space terrifies you. Because rebuilding identity means confronting the unknown. It means standing alone and choosing who you want to be. Without their influence. Without their validation. Without their presence. And that's where many people get stuck. They cling to the old version of themselves. They replay memories, not just of the love, but of who they were in that love. Because losing them feels like losing yourself. But here's the truth you need to hold on to. You are not gone. You are not broken beyond repair. You are not half a person. You are still here. And what feels like destruction is actually the beginning of reconstruction. The shattered self is not the end of you. It's the shedding of a skin, the breaking of a shell, the painful dismantling of a life that was built around someone else. And while it feels unbearable, it's also a chance to build something stronger, something truer, something that doesn't depend on someone else's presence to make it whole. But before you can rebuild, you must first face the grief of not just losing them, but losing the identity that existed with them. It's okay to mourn that version of yourself. It's okay to feel lost. It's okay to cry not only for the relationship, but for the you that disappeared with it. Because grieving that version of yourself is the first step in creating a new one. Your mind will fight this. It will whisper, maybe if I get them back, I'll get myself back too. But that's the illusion. The truth is, the version of you that was tied to them was never permanent. That self was temporary, just like the relationship. And what you're left with now is the chance to create a self that doesn't disappear when someone else walks away. Think about this. Every heartbreak in your past, every ending, every goodbye, you thought it would break you. And yet here you are, not the same, but still standing, different, but still whole. The shattered self is not destruction. It's transformation. You don't lose yourself in love and loss. You uncover parts of yourself you didn't know were there. The pain strips away illusions. And what remains is something raw, something real, something that belongs only to you. So if you feel broken right now, if you feel like you don't recognize yourself, if you feel like your identity has been ripped away, breathe. You are not gone. You are in transition. This is the part of the story where the old self dissolves, so the new self can emerge. Yes, it's painful. Yes, it's disorienting. Yes, it feels like everything has been stolen. But in time, you'll see it differently. You'll see that what shattered was never meant to last. And what remains is the unbreakable core of who you truly are. The empty space. After the mirror shatters, you're left with silence. The kind of silence that feels louder than noise. The empty space where their laughter used to echo, where their texts used to buzz, where their presence used to fill the room. Now it's just you. The quiet feels unbearable. The emptiness feels endless. This is the part that makes people panic. The void, the stillness, the place where nothing seems to live anymore. And because it hurts, we rush to fill it with distractions, with rebounds, with overworking, with scrolling, with anything, to avoid sitting in the quiet. Because the empty space feels like death. It feels like being erased. It feels like being abandoned, not only by them, but by life itself. But here's the truth most of us miss. The empty space is not your enemy. It's not punishment. It's not the universe being cruel. The empty space is sacred. It's where the rebuilding begins. Because identity doesn't grow in noise. It grows in silence. It grows in stillness. It grows in the moments when you think you've lost everything, and then discover you still have yourself. Think about it like a house. When an old house collapses, what remains is a field of rubble. At first, it looks hopeless, destroyed, wasted. But if you clear the debris, what do you find? Space. Space to build again. Space to create something new. Space to design a foundation that won't crumble the same way. The empty space is your foundation. It's terrifying because it feels like nothing. But in truth, it's the beginning of everything. The mistake we make is believing the emptiness means we're broken. We say, I don't feel like myself anymore. I feel hollow. I don't know who I am. But maybe that's the point. Maybe the emptiness isn't loss. Maybe it's an invitation to meet yourself without the mask of a relationship, an invitation to hear your own voice again, an invitation to discover what you want when no one else is influencing you. The empty space is uncomfortable because you're meeting yourself again without their shadow, without their expectations, without their presence. And let's be honest, sometimes you don't like what you see. The loneliness, the fears, the doubts, the insecurities, all the things their presence used to cover up, now rise to the surface. It's raw, it's messy, it's vulnerable, but it's also real. This is the soil where new identity grows. And here's what most people don't realize. If you rush to fill the empty space with someone new or something distracting, you rob yourself of the chance to grow. You end up building your identity on someone else again, and the cycle repeats. Breakup after breakup, shattered mirror after shattered mirror. The empty space is not there to be avoided. It's there to be embraced. Ask yourself, what do I feel when the silence surrounds me? What parts of myself emerge when no one is watching? What truths have I been avoiding because it was easier to focus on them? The empty space answers these questions. It's not a void, it's a canvas, and what you paint on it becomes the story of your rebirth. But here's the challenge. Your mind hates emptiness. It will try to drag you back. It will whisper, call them, text them, go back. At least then you won't feel so alone. It will push you toward the comfort of the familiar, even if the familiar was painful, because emptiness is unknown, and the unknown terrifies us. But listen, what's unknown is also where possibility lives. The empty space is not the end. It's the doorway. Imagine a forest after a wildfire. At first, all you see is destruction, ash, smoke, emptiness. But look closer. Weeks later, tiny green shoots begin to push through the black soil. Life returns. Growth begins. The empty space is like that. At first, it looks lifeless. But given time, new life begins to grow. And this new life isn't fragile. It's resilient. It's born out of fire. It's born out of endings. It's born out of loss. So when you sit in your room, staring at the silence, feeling the weight of absence, don't mistake it for nothing. That silence is where your soul begins to speak. That stillness is where your power begins to return. That emptiness is where your identity begins to rebuild. You are not lost. You are becoming. The empty space feels unbearable now, but one day you'll look back and realize it saved you. It forced you to slow down. It forced you to listen. It forced you to face the parts of yourself you had been avoiding. And in that facing, you found strength. You found truth. You found a self that no relationship could ever erase again. So don't run from the empty space. Don't fear the quiet. Don't numb the silence. Sit with it. Honor it. Let it teach you. Because in the end, the empty space isn't where you lose yourself. It's where you finally meet yourself. Rediscovering the self. The empty space is not the end. It's the threshold, the doorway you step through to find what was waiting for you all along. Yourself. Rediscovering the self after a relationship ends is not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before you forgot. Because let's be honest, sometimes in love, you slowly disappear, piece by piece, compromise after compromise, sacrifice after sacrifice, until one day you look in the mirror and realize you don't recognize the reflection. You gave so much to the relationship, to the idea of us, that the me slipped away. Not because you were weak, not because you were wrong, but because that's what many of us are taught. To merge, to bend, to make it work at all costs. But the cost was you. Now, in the aftermath, you're left with questions that feel heavier than grief itself. Who am I now? What do I even like? What matters to me when I'm not orbiting someone else's world? These questions are not signs of being lost. They are signs of rebirth. Because rediscovering the self doesn't begin with answers. It begins with curiosity. So how do you begin? How do you piece yourself back together when the pieces feel scattered everywhere? You start small, with fragments, with whispers of the things you once loved. Think back, before them, before the relationship, before the entanglement. What did you love then? What made you feel alive? What felt like yours and yours alone? Maybe it was painting. Maybe it was music. Maybe it was traveling, or writing, or laughing with friends, or simply sitting in the quiet with a book. Those parts of you are not gone. They've just been waiting. Rediscovering the self is like opening old drawers and finding treasures you'd forgotten. At first, they look dusty and used, distant, but when you pick them up, when you hold them again, you remember, this was me, this is me, and slowly, piece by piece, you begin to return. But it's not just about old loves. It's also about new ones. Because grief has a strange gift. It makes you raw. It cracks you open. And in that openness, you discover things you never knew about yourself. Maybe you try dancing for the first time. Maybe you learn a new language. Maybe you find peace in hiking, or joy in cooking, or freedom in creating something with your hands. These aren't just hobbies. They are pathways back to yourself. Pathways that say, I am more than who I was with them. I am someone in my own right. But here's the resistance you'll face. Your mind will cling to the past. It will whisper, you're not whole without them. You'll never find joy again. You don't even know who you are anymore. These voices aren't truth. They're echoes. Echoes of dependency. Echoes of old conditioning. The way to silence them is not by arguing back, but by proving them wrong. Through living, every small act of self-discovery is proof. Every time you try something new, every time you honor a forgotten love, every time you choose yourself, you remind your heart, I am here. I am alive. I am becoming again. Rediscovering the self is not instant. It's not one big revelation. It's hundreds of tiny choices. The choice to wake up, even when it feels easier to stay in bed. The choice to cook for yourself, even when no one is watching. The choice to reach out to a friend instead of isolating. The choice to journal your thoughts instead of letting them drown you. Each choice is a stitch, and slowly, you sew yourself back together. And here's what's beautiful. When you rediscover yourself, you begin to feel freedom because you realize you are not defined by who stayed or who left. You are not only someone's partner. You are not only someone's lover. You are not only someone's story. You are your own. And that realization isn't just healing, it's liberation. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you felt proud of yourself? Just for being you? Not for what you gave to someone. Not for how you held them together. Not for how much you sacrificed. But proud of who you are, independent of anyone else. If it's been a while, this is your moment. Because rediscovering the self means coming home to the part of you that never needed permission to shine, to the part of you that was always enough. And here's the secret. You never truly lost yourself. You buried parts of you, yes. You quieted parts of you, yes. But lost? No. The self is resilient. It waits. It endures. It whispers under the noise. And when the relationship ends, when the noise fades, when the silence comes, you finally hear it again. That voice, that truth, that you. Rediscovering the self isn't about finding what's outside of you. It's about remembering what was inside all along. The strength, the creativity, the humor, the resilience, the worth. It was always there. And now, in the aftermath, you get to reclaim it. So let the journey be messy. Let it be slow. Let it be imperfect. But let it be yours. Because every step you take toward rediscovering the self is a step toward a life that no relationship can ever take away again. And that, right there, is freedom. Building a new foundation. Rediscovering yourself is the first step. But once you've found those pieces again, once you've remembered who you are, there's another question. How do you build a life that feels stable, that feels strong, that doesn't crumble? The next time someone leaves, that's where the new foundation begins. A relationship ending is often like an earthquake. It shakes the ground beneath you. It tears down what you thought was unshakable. It leaves rubble where once there were walls. At first, you just want to rebuild what you had, to glue the pieces back together, to recreate the familiar. But if you're honest, you'll see the cracks were there long before. The walls weren't solid. The ground wasn't stable. And deep down, you know this isn't about going back. It's about starting new. Building a new foundation doesn't mean pretending the past didn't happen. It means learning from it. It means asking, what do I want my life to rest on this time? Because if love taught you anything, it's that building your entire world on someone else is like building a house on sand. It may hold for a while, but the storm will come, and when it does, everything falls. So this time, you build differently. You build stronger. You build on you. Think of it this way. Your foundation is made of pillars, and those pillars cannot depend on one person alone. They must be many. They must be varied. They must be rooted in what cannot be taken from you. So what are those pillars? Self-respect, the unwavering knowledge that your worth is not up for debate. Boundaries, the lines you draw to protect your peace, to guard your heart, to honor your energy. Purpose, the sense of meaning that carries you, even when life feels empty. Community, not one person, but a circle. Friends, family, chosen family, people who see you and value you. Growth, the commitment to learning, to healing, to becoming. Again and again, when you build on these pillars, you stop living in fear of everything collapsing. Because even if someone leaves, your house stands. Even if life shakes, you do not fall. The love you build next will not be the fragile kind that demands you abandon yourself. It will be the steady kind that adds to your foundation, not replaces it. But here's the challenge. Foundations take time. They are not instant. And in our world, we are taught to rush. We want to leap from heartbreak straight into healing, from grief straight into love again. But if you rush the foundation, you repeat the past. You build the same house on the same sand. So allow yourself patience. Allow yourself slowness. Allow yourself to do it right this time. Think about it. What would it look like if your life was built on self-respect first? What would it look like if every decision, every relationship, every yes and no came from a place of honoring yourself? You would stop begging for love. You would stop shrinking to fit. You would stop handing your power away, because the foundation would already be solid. And you would know, I am worthy, even when no one else says it. And boundaries, how would your life change if you finally trusted yourself to draw the line and hold it? No more saying yes when you mean no. No more tolerating neglect just to keep someone close. No more giving endless chances to someone who keeps showing you they won't change. Boundaries don't push love away. They filter love. They keep out what harms you. They make space for what heals you. That's the kind of foundation that will not crack. And purpose, this one changes everything. Because when your life is fueled by meaning that is yours, not borrowed from someone else, you stop feeling empty. When someone leaves, their absence may hurt, but your purpose remains. Your why remains. It could be your work, your art, your service, your children, your creativity, your growth. Purpose doesn't have to be grand. It just has to be yours. And when you live with it, you live anchored. Community is another pillar, because isolation makes pain louder. When you carry everything alone, grief feels unbearable. But when you are held by people who understand, who care, who remind you of your worth, the load lightens. Community reminds you, you are not meant to be everything to one person, and no one person is meant to be everything to you. That's not love. That's captivity. Freedom is found when your heart can rest in many connections, not just one. And growth, this is the pillar that keeps the others alive. Because life will keep changing. You will keep changing. And if you cling to the old, you'll get stuck. But growth invites you to keep moving forward, to keep asking, what am I learning? What am I becoming? Every mistake becomes wisdom. Every heartbreak becomes strength. Growth makes sure your foundation is not just solid, but alive. Building a new foundation isn't glamorous. It's not dramatic. It's not something people cheer for. It's slow work, quiet work, invisible work. But it's the kind of work that saves you. Because one day, someone will walk into your life, and instead of clinging to them, out of fear, you'll stand tall in who you are. Instead of bending until you break, you'll love from a place of strength. Instead of needing them to complete you, you'll invite them to join you. And that kind of love, the one built on a strong foundation, doesn't shatter when the ground shakes. It steadies you. So take this season, not as the end of everything, but as the beginning of your foundation, brick by brick, pillar by pillar, choice by choice. Because when you build on you, you can lose someone, but never lose yourself. And that is what lasting peace feels like. Freedom in redefinition. You reach a moment, a quiet turning point, where grief no longer owns every corner of you, where the ache softens, where the questions lose their sharpness. And in that moment, something unexpected happens. You realize you're not just healing, you're becoming, not returning to who you were, not clinging to what you lost, but redefining who you are. Redefinition is freedom, because it means you no longer measure yourself by the story you shared with them. You no longer say, "I was whole when I was theirs." Instead, you say, "I am whole because I am mine." This freedom doesn't arrive in a single rush. It comes slowly, in tiny, almost invisible ways. The first time you laugh without guilt. The first time silence feels like peace, not punishment. The first time you wake up, and the day feels like yours again. That's redefinition. That's freedom. For so long, your identity may have been built around us. Your habits, your plans, even your sense of self. But now, you are learning to build around me. Not in selfishness, not in isolation, but in a deeper truth. That your life was never meant to shrink down to the shape of one person. Freedom in redefinition means this. You give yourself permission to expand, to try new things, to explore new places, to build new connections, to step into new versions of yourself that the relationship never allowed. It's realizing you were never finished. You were never static. You were always meant to evolve. And heartbreak, as brutal as it was, became the soil where that evolution grew. You may notice something else. The person you're becoming. Stronger, clearer, freer. Wouldn't even recognize the version of you that once begged for answers. You no longer need their explanation. You no longer crave their approval. You no longer fear their absence. Because your presence to yourself has become louder than their silence. That is the definition of freedom. It's not that the past disappears. The memories are still there, but they no longer define you. They no longer hold the final word. They are simply chapters, not the whole book. You write the next pages. You decide the tone. You carry the pen now. Some people believe freedom comes when someone returns, when apologies are given, when the story ends neatly. But you know the truth. Freedom comes when you no longer need any of those things. Freedom comes when you stop bargaining with what could have been and start living in what is. Freedom comes when your reflection no longer feels broken, but whole again, not because they gave you back the pieces, but because you picked them up yourself. Redefinition is not about erasing love. It's about expanding beyond it. It's about saying, yes, that love shaped me. Yes, that ending scarred me, but it did not finish me. It's about choosing to live wide instead of small. It's about owning your resilience without apology. It's about recognizing you are not just the person who lost. You are the person who rose. And maybe the greatest freedom of all is realizing you don't have to prove that to anyone, not to them, not to the world. not even to your past self. The life you're building now, the one defined by your values, your passions, your choices, is the only proof you need. Because every morning you rise again, you are already living the evidence. Freedom in redefinition also means you no longer fear love itself, because now you know that even if love ends, you remain. You don't lose yourself again, because you know who you are, because you know how to rebuild. That knowledge makes you unshakable, not untouchable, not invincible, but rooted in yourself. Think of it this way. In the relationship, you may have been a branch, growing around another's trunk. When they left, it felt like you were snapped off. But in truth, you were a tree all along. Your own roots, your own soil, your own sky to grow toward. Redefinition is remembering that. Freedom is living it. Now, the future looks different. Not because it's predictable, not because you control every outcome, but because you no longer fear being without them. You no longer measure your worth by whether someone stays. You carry yourself differently. You speak with more truth. You make choices aligned with your soul, not your fear of being abandoned. This is freedom. This is identity reclaimed. This is redefinition lived out loud. And maybe one day, you'll look back at the version of yourself who thought you wouldn't survive this. You'll remember the nights of grief, the endless replaying of moments, the ache that felt permanent, and you'll smile, not because it didn't hurt, not because it wasn't real, but because you know now that pain was not your ending. It was your beginning. That's what freedom in redefinition is. Not the absence of pain, but the transformation of it. Not the return to who you were, but the arrival at someone wiser, deeper, freer. Not just living again, but living whole. Because love did not define you. Loss did not finish you. You define you. And that definition is limitless.